Hello guys and welcome back. It's been a few weeks since the new patch and some of you have contacted me for advice following the changes. We must understand that midline ships have been very powerful in the past. They are now made less efficient than low-tech and high-tech models. The nerfs to the monitor as well as the firing rate of missiles are harmful for certain builds. Unfortunately, there is no exception for Squall because it's now easier to counter. On the other hand, the introduction of the Escort Package hull mod allows us to make new builds, and we can now increase the regeneration rate of missile ammunition, including that which applies to Omega weapons. First of all, this build is an update from previous versions. Its design is to be very powerful and pleasant to use. It can also do all the content, farming remnants without much management and without piloting a ship. But we will need Omega weapons to be optimal, even if the result could be substantially similar without them. In the end, if you are a beginner, I highly recommend it. The fleet contains a total of 240 deployment points and includes 1 Gryphon for Executors, 2 Lion Guard Centurions, and 2 LaghCat Path Brawlers. According to the results of the vote I did earlier on the channel, I tried to introduce the Hammerhead and the new monitor to the build, but both have inferior performance to the Brawler. Now, let's talk about the Gryphon loadout, which is completely unorthodox. This ship is not really designed to be up front and take a beating. Instead, it excels at supporting our fleet. It costs 20 deployment points, but it allows us to have 2 medium and 1 large missiles. In terms of behavior, a timid officer is really good at staying in the back of our capital ship, but we are limited to using 2K range missiles to be effective. Conversely, a cautious officer has a greater risk of being destroyed but can use shorter range missiles. Here, we need to focus on the shield but also on maneuverability, since it allows to react and adapt adequately to the movement of the capital ship, which will be constantly in motion. Now, the weaponry. With all the nerfs, one of the options for kinetic damage is the Resonator MRM launcher. It seems a little weird, but with the combination of the ammo regeneration rate by elite missile specialization, a volley of resonators will bring us more damage than the Squall. In addition to being fast and with better tracking, it is a very impressive weapon. If you use it, make sure you don't combine with other missiles that have ammo, because it will take all the charges of its system ability in less than a minute. This is why we are replacing the large missile with a reality disruptor. With the incredible range coming from Escort Package, integrated targeting unit, and gunnery implants, we are able to adequately counter missiles and fighters, while applying an impressive EMP zone. To be able to activate the weapon significantly, combine it with a PD like a single mining laser. In this patch, it is not necessary to equip all turrets with PDs, since the Gryphon will not attempt to fire in the direction of the capital ship. If we have to deal with sneaking frigates, the Executor's missiles with those of the Resonators can be enough to destroy them. Otherwise, there is always the option of taking a Brawler or Centurion to finish the job. As for small missiles, we use Salamanders since they have no ammo limit and they remain a good source of additional EMP to slow down enemies. Regarding our second ship, the Executor is, in my opinion, one of the best midline anchors and the wisest to take. This ship suffers from a flux dissipation issue, forcing us to restrict ourselves to certain weapons. Although it can take hits very well, it is important not to let this ship fight alone, as it continually generates soft flux. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing, since the steady officer will try to reduce this soft flux during the fight. We simply need to be more careful. Otherwise, we need to improve the shield, flux dissipation, and maneuverability. Now, for the ballistics in the front, I strongly recommend that you don't go below 700 range at least. Since we have more than one choice available, we take the heavy autocannon because it unleashes high kinetic damage continuously. To maximize the chances of hitting the enemy, we must have the gunnery implants and elite ballistic mastery skills. If we look at the build from the previous patch, we are abandoning missile specialization, which by the way is suitable since we are replacing Squalls with Locust SRM launchers. You are going to tell me why Locusts? Well, they allow us to have a very large quantity of missile volleys without making too much investment. The Locust appears to be nerfed, but having a volley of 30 missiles instead of 40 is actually a buff. With expanded missile racks hull mod, we have enough to fight a battle against more than 4 fleets. They certainly add hull damage to the loadout, but they mainly allow us to destroy frigates, phase ships, and fighters easily. We need to know that as soon as there is a ship larger than a frigate, the Executor will try to change targets. If the enemy's hard flux is high enough, the frigate may not survive. Finally, the ECCM bonus should not be neglected even if the damage generated by the missiles is not significant. Now, the lasers. Our main damage largely comes from high-intensity lasers, a weapon that doesn't use much flux and has excellent range. In order to maximize their effectiveness, we absolutely need advanced turret gyros hull mod since the weapon's turn rate is very slow, and to combine them with a PD like a flak cannon in order to be able to fire continuously. Since we don't have much flux dissipation left, the easiest option for medium energy turrets is to use IR autolenses. In addition to shooting when there are fighters or when the enemy no longer has a shield, they allow us to perfectly manage the accumulation of soft flux. As you can see, the Executor does not have a 360-degree shield, but having a frigate like the Centurion as an escort means that the enemy makes very few attempts to attack from the rear. Being cheaper in deployment points than the Omen, the Centurion succeeds very well in tanking damage with damper field when piloted by a cautious officer. Moreover, it has an excellent role against missiles and fighters if it is well equipped. This is why we use shock repeaters. They provide both sustained damage and EMP, something we need to repel enemies, but they also allow us to fire through our own ships. It is important to mention that the weapon fires a projectile. The Lion Guard version therefore brings a bonus with Energy Bolt Coherer. Combined with the Elite Point Defense skill, we are completely doubling the base range of the weapon, which now exceeds 600 range. For this model, we want to improve the shield, peak performance, and point defense. Last but not least, the Brawler is quite diverse in its tasks. Both for quickly capturing objectives and hunting frigates or destroyers, the Luddic Path version is a model that many of you know and still use. As safety overrides hull mod reduces the weapon's range when they are over 450, it was designed to unload an impressive burst of ballistics at this distance. When we use accelerated ammo feeder, the accumulation of soft flux is greatly reduced. The alternative of using Sabo SRMs instead of light dual machine guns remains your personal choice. For my part, I prefer to have an option against fighters and also not to depend on the AI to make good decisions with missiles limited in quantity. Regarding elite helmsmanship, we can have very good results compared to elite field modulation, which makes the Brawler too aggressive and exposes itself unnecessarily. Here we focus on the shield, peak performance, and point defense. If you like to min-max your fleet, you can upgrade your civilian ships using story points for efficiency overhaul and solar shielding hull mods. It is not necessary to do this for insulated engine assembly since the Executors have too high sensor profiles. In addition, we must have surveying equipment hull mod on 2 ships to reduce the survey cost. As we have several atlases, it is essential to add high-resolution sensors on all models in order to improve the strength of our sensors. Finally, for Oxen are necessary to have the maximum burn level in the build. Considering we don't pilot any ships, the skill tree is relatively simple. We take navigation and bulk transport at the start. If you prefer to trade early game, take the leadership skills first then industry. This way you will get your officers more quickly. If you like doing bounties early in the game, just do the opposite. As we have 9 combat ships, don't forget to take officer management to have all your officers. When you have cybernetic augmentation with an officer at level 6 who has the right behavior and skills, replace the officer management skill with best of the best. Pay a story point and your officer will become the perfect mercenary. The last big topic is how it all works in combat. In fact, against anyone, you'll deploy all of your ships except for an Executor. Have the Brawlers capture the objectives, while placing your capital ships in a straight line to counter the majority of the enemy fleet. Escort them by putting your Centurions at each end and the Gryphon in the center. Once you have enough points, place your last Executor in the center of the formation so that it can be covered. All you have to do is adjust the offensive line you have created and take the Brawlers who are waiting to chase away the small enemies. And with that, I have covered just about everything. I hope you enjoyed the new build guide. A huge thank you to everyone who continues to support the channel. I'm sure some of you are wondering where the videos have been for the past few months. My goal has always been to make each one better than the last, and I hope that this will lead to some really good results. There just are not enough of them for this game. Stay until the end if you want to see a battle against 4 Ordos. I'll see you guys in the next one.
for revolution.